welcome to the Red Zone, the tight end analysis podcast for the Wild Card Round. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. Of course, there are some good options at tight end here, starting off with a guy who's been one of the more reliable plays in all football recently, and you've got him listed as cash game. Obviously, he's the GPP play as well because he's got big upside, but that's Jordan Reed. Obviously, the Packers are an intelligent team that's had playoff success, so they know that Jordan Reed's going to be coming, and they're going to be watching him, but Washington does have other weapons, so you're going to have to still, respect other guys like Deshaun Jackson, at least respect his speed. Maybe not him as a person or as a player, but his speed and his ability to make big plays. But you got to imagine Jordan Reed's still going to see 10 to 12 targets in this one. Kirk Cousins' favorite target. He gets red zone looks, and, he's a huge target, so he's going to be really tough to stop, especially in the red zone, as he usually is.
Yeah, he's your safest bet. And he's going to be the most popular, so even if he does have a down game, it's not going to completely kill you. He's pretty safe, and he's averaged 8.1 targets per season. The next closest number on the slate to that is Travis Kelce with 6.4. So we'll probably not target Travis Kelce because that 6.4 is pretty unreliable. But Reed, 11 red zone touchdowns this season, 27% red zone targets. Like you said, Green Bay's probably going to key in on him. But, you could say that with a couple other tight ends this week. There are other options, and if Pierre Garçon and the other guys step up, Reed's going to have his usual week. And Green Bay ranks 15th in the league against for fantasy points allowed per tight ends, so it's not a tough matchup for him.
Yeah, absolutely. The next guy up is dollar for dollar. Before I say this, dollar for dollar, my favorite Steelers play this week, especially on DraftKings where he's really, really cheap. Heath Miller for the Steelers, only 60 catches on the whole season, but 20 of them against the Bengals, and that's what the Bengals do against the Steelers, in case you hadn't watched the first couple games or even the last few seasons, is you got your deep threats. You're, I guess, just this year with guys like Martavis Bryant, really, but Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant and company. Bengals strive to take away the deep ball, and they give up the underneath pass, which always opens up opportunities for Heath Miller. Not going to be a huge yardage guy. He's not going to be, anything but a high-volume play, but you just know that he's going to be that because the Bengals are going to allow him to have that all game long.
Yeah, and at DK, we're the full-point PPR, 20 catches in the two games against him on 23 targets. That's 20 fantasy points to go with 171 yards combined in that two-game span. So, for 3,300 on DK, it's a nice cheap option that opens up tons of salary. And, like you said, they take away the wide receivers. You saw Miller become a focal point, trying to pick up those underneath passes, trying to get those short yardage first downs. Always going to get looks in the red zone as well. So, for cheap, and if you don't want to grab another flex spot at somewhere else, you can definitely go Reed Miller and then really pay up. So it's definitely a nice option this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. We definitely agree with you there. On the opposite side of this one, not a bad guy to even pair in your GPPs on DraftKings with Heath Miller or Jordan Reed. Tyler Eifert there against the Steelers. Had he not missed a few games there or had a touchdown call back against Ravens or whatever, he may have led the league in touchdowns. And he had 13. Great red zone target. He's a big threat in the middle of the field as well. And A.J. McCarron, obviously going to start this game. And you need as much safety and smart, easy plays for him to make as possible in this game to avoid mistakes. And Tyler Eifert and his huge frame certainly stands out as a great option for him to make smart, short plays and hope that his receivers can make a play after the catch.
Yeah, definitely. Eifert, he hasn't played with McCarron outside of last week. Hasn't really, because he's had the concussion issue the last few weeks. But he's a guy he's had monster targets all season, and you look at his red zone numbers are just insane. He caught 75% of his red zone targets this season, 11 red zone touchdowns. He's one of the two tight ends, I guess you could say, on this slate with 2 touchdown upside, with the other one being Jordan Reed. So I definitely, as you mentioned, nice strategy would be pairing Eifert with Reed, just to differentiate yourself from the field today. So I'm all over Eifert this week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan there. Next guy here, he did have one big yardage game. Maybe a second one. I stopped looking at the game logs because I felt sick, but Kyle Rudolph, obviously, there's not a lot of options this week. Kyle Rudolph is a guy who does get red zone looks. Seattle has struggled at times with tight ends. And the Vikings are going to need to throw the ball, let's be honest here, because you imagine Vegas does as well. Seattle's going to score points. Minnesota can't simply rely on Adrian Peterson to run the ball 30-plus times and keep this game close. So they're going to have to make some plays down the field and in the red zone once they get there. So you got to imagine Seattle Gonna be all over Stephon Diggs. I mean, plenty of cornerbacks to slow him down. Got to be looking elsewhere. And Kyle Rudolph just makes sense as a guy that you can kind of pivot to as a different kind of target and hope that he gets himself a touchdown catch.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to be different. There's 4 games. I mean, you're going to have to make a move somewhere to be different. And why not take a shot at a low-end tight end who's priced pretty cheaply and who's not going to kill your lineup if you post just a mere 2 catch for 30 yards or whatever, if that. I mean, he does have such a low floor, but if you want to be completely off the grid, Kyle Rudolph's your guy. I mean, Seattle's one big weakness is against the tight end, which is surprising because they haven't played any real solid tight ends this season. They rank 26th per Football Outsiders, and they've allowed the 9th most fantasy points per game. So, I mean, Rudolph gets his red zone targets when AP's not being force-fed down there. He's seen 21% of them in the passing game. So, I mean, we've seen Rudolph go off for a couple big games this season, but we know his floor is very low.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned with Seattle, they haven't faced a lot of good tight ends, but the few times that they did, I mean, Tyler Eifert definitely had his way with them.
Yep.
So there's certainly some playing to be had in the middle of the field there against the Seattle defense. So go ahead and give him a target as your contrarian play. That'll wrap things up here for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.